Thanks for coming to my talk. I'll try to keep an eye on time at the same time. Yeah, okay. Great. So, Multiverse. So, great to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Samuel Zhao. I'm a CTO and one of the founders of Multiverse Computing. We're a 6-year-old company. We've got some cool credentials that I wrote down here. We're currently sitting at, so we're quite well funded. We're sitting at around 300 million US equity. And some of our key investors are ForgePoint, obviously, JP Borhan, Quantination, and I'll come back to this. An interesting one as well is HP is one of our strategic investors. I made a mistake on this slide. I believe we're closer to 90 million ANR, so a small mistake. And also this slide is a bit outdated. We're actually at 450 employees currently and sitting at around 200 patents. So we'd consider ourselves to be one of the big AI software players currently in Europe. And now I'll give you a little bit of insight on what we're doing, what technology we're developing, and particularly towards in the direction of having a European AI sovereignty. So this is our starting point. So we offer agents to our customers. These are incredibly powerful, as you all know. However, they're also extremely power hungry and possibly very hard to govern as well. And one of the problems that was actually already brought up is the one of feature creep. All of these SaaS companies are releasing new features that use LLMs and rely heavily on the cloud. And this is incurring huge costs for them. And so they're seeing their cloud bills exploding. And one of the very concrete cases of this is Adobe, for instance, that has a $1 billion problem with this. And they're seeing that it's impossible for them to pass those costs onto their customers. Bottom line, we need a cheaper way to run agents. And there's basically two things that you can do in this situation. The first one is cheaper cloud LLMs, so simply more efficient AI. And the second one is to move the compute burden onto your customer. So you move your AI on their premises, and then they're not paying a more expensive license, but they're covering the compute costs. And this actually has impacts, as you can see on the right, for obviously the costs, energy and sustainability, also really important, and control and governance. And I'll come back to that specific point afterwards. And so bottom line, what we really need is LLMs that are small and fast. This is what enables your cheaper cloud LLMs, or it enables your local LLMs. And so this is where we came up with our software that we've been building for the past 6 years. It's called Compactify, and it allows us to shrink AI either for use on-prem or for use in the cloud. And so if you're so inclined, you can access a whole bunch of our compressed models through our API. And so this is kind of our starting point. This is what we've been working on for the past 6 years, and we've been quite successful building out this technology, basically. Then where do we go? Where do we go from here? So we've gone and deployed this for use on the cloud and for use on the edge. And really, the key word on this slide is sovereign. So we want to build an infrastructure that's going to allow our customers, that's going to allow governments to access AI in a completely European sovereign way, and I'll give you a taste of how that works. Let me start with the cloud bit. So on the cloud side, we have built this this platform called the AI Foundry, and again, really around this idea of let's build sovereign AI both on the cloud and on-prem. So the Foundry, this is a screenshot of what it looks like. It contains a sandbox environment that we call the playground, where you can try out different models real time and try out your agents and see basically how they perform in a very controlled environment, and assign minimum privileges to them and kind of iterate on that before sending them out to production. In addition to that, we also, like, you can access all of the models. So we've built a very consequent model zoo of AI models, and you can access all of them through here, have visibility on the projected savings and on the projected accelerations of these models. And in addition to that, you also have access to tooling to build your own agents, to build your own RAG systems. And these are all the same tools that we use internally to build these services for our customers. In addition to that, we also give all the software stack for deploying our models. And I think I got a little bit mixed up. So let me go back a slide because I forgot to say something. We also give access to specialized models here. So we've built a whole bunch of specialized models for particular tasks, and those are the ones that you can leverage for your agents. So we also give the ability to deploy models everywhere. And amongst the things that we offer in this toolbox is our compression methods. So the same stuff as I spoke about earlier. So really the ability to compress your own models, to specialize them to your particular tasks. And also we made quite a big announcement recently around some uncensoring that we've done for our models. So we proposed a method to uncensor DeepSeek and Qwen3 and made those models available open source. And this is really, really important if you're going to use these models in production, basically. So an interesting statistic around this, Anderson Horowitz recently announced that 80% of the startups that they were interviewing, that were pitching to them, were all based on DeepSeek model, on Qwen3, on these these huge Chinese models that were obviously like subject to a lot of censorship, and that potentially creates you a problem from a like safety or governance perspective. So we offer some of the tooling to also erase that problem. And finally, we offer the ability to deploy into sovereign regions. So all of this ships is deployed onto like the bare metal that is coming out of the Gigafactories projects. And we're going to be providing the whole software stack, the whole infrastructure stack for this deployment. So not only from the like bare metal to the deployment, but also all the governance, like all the boring but extremely important stuff that goes with it. So basically, what guardrails are you imposing to your agents and all of this? And finally, like pieces of this are also applicable to the edge. And so some of the work that I can brief you on, some of the work that we're doing in this direction, including, so as I mentioned, HP is one of our strategic partners, and we're working on deploying some of some of our models and some parts of what I just showed you to like AI PCs with them. In addition to that, we're collaborating with a few European players, including Accelera, for instance, to ship the foundry with their hardware down to the bare metal level. And also in the automotive sector, obviously, you can't rely on clouds in those cases. So it becomes extremely important to have a very credible edge AI solution. So that's kind of a broad overview of what we're building and how we're leveraging that AI compression to build a bigger ecosystem that's really sovereign, a sovereign AI ecosystem, not only the AI models being sovereign, but also all of the infrastructure and all of the hardware. Thanks for listening, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Fahad Rizki. I'm the president here at Fiddler. Before I start, a show of hands, how many of you have agentic applications or LLM-powered applications in production or even pre-production? All right, a few hands there. So as I go through my presentation, there's a few questions that I'd like you to think about. One is, if your CEO or if your board came to you tomorrow and asked you, can you tell me with confidence how our AI systems are behaving? That's one. Second is shadow AI. How confident are you that you have a handle on all agentic applications that are in production in your environment? Number three is the EU AI Act, and how ready you are for that. And number four is, what is the operational risk of a bad output, right? So at Fiddler, well, our mission is to build trust in AI. And we all know this, that the traditional applications are sort of out the window, and with agentic applications, the outputs are highly indeterministic. These are all model decision based, dynamic adaptation, and because of this, you, for the most part, don't have as much control over what the output is going to be. So this was a survey done by PwC, asking CIOs, and we've done the same thing with our customer base as well, asking them, what is the biggest hurdle for AI adoption for you? And obviously security and trust are top of the list, along with cost and legacy, but security and trust are by far the biggest two hurdles for enterprises to be adopting AI in pre-production or production. So, what Fiddler does is we provide the observability and security for agentic applications, for machine learning models, as well as for Gen AI applications in general, as well as provide guardrails on top of that. And what we also help with is AI governance mandates. So, for example, the EU AI Act mandates strict oversight and continuous monitoring of high-risk AI systems. So it's not just the EU AI Act. A lot of you are doing businesses and have presence around the globe, and there's different governance mandates and compliance mandates that you have to follow, and every single country is coming up with new compliance rules around AI, and these will become enforceable over the next coming years. A little bit about Fiddler. We just raised our Series C. We've raised about 100 million. We're now close to almost 100 employees. Funded by Lightspeed, Insight, BGV, Lux, and many others. The company was founded by ex Meta, Twitter folks here who were building these same machine learning models and building these at scale at Meta and at Twitter. We're also getting a lot of recognition from in the security space around agentic security. This is, as you all know, this is the number one problem that everybody is trying to solve, is as we go into pre-production, building these agentic applications, as well as then putting them into production, is around observability and security. So what do? We are building the control plane for AI agents. We are building the control plane for AI agents. So whether you're building internal agentic applications on, whether that, we are agnostic to whatever you're building on, whether that be on LangChain or Amazon Bedrock or SageMaker or whatever that might be, we are monitoring and observing those agentic applications across, and the way that we do this, and then I'll go in the next slide, but essentially we are taking the data from these agents through an open source OTel model. We're taking the metadata, the inputs, the outputs, we're looking at all of that, and then we're reporting on everything from bias and hallucinations to PII leakage to jailbreak attempts, faithfulness, so on and so forth. So hundreds of different metrics is what we are reporting on, as well as then providing guardrails, very, very high speed guardrails, 100 millisecond guardrails to be able to block. If you're seeing any sort of hallucinations, we're able to block those. The other thing then we're getting a lot of demand for is third-party applications. So all of you, I'm sure, are looking at bringing in third-party applications, Salesforce, Agentforce, Glean, Zendesk, so on and so forth. But how do you put controls around those? And so we will be able to then provide you context and visibility around those third-party applications as well. So, and then provide you with audit and compliance and that entire complete visibility for you, basically one single control plane for all your AI agents, right? This is something that no one else is doing right now, providing you with that single pane of glass for observability for both your machine learning models, for agentic, Gen AI, and as well as providing the guardrails here. This is a view of how, very quick view of what the product looks like. Highly customizable. We get a lot of requests from customers to, for example, they want to know that within a lot of our customers deploy internal agents. And they want to know, for example, what is the sentiment that our employees have around the company, right? Based on whatever inputs and outputs they're receiving. So it's highly, highly customizable. Cost is another thing that we can monitor on this. So for example, we have customers, we have a lot of banking customers, insurance customers who want to know that for every bad output, what is that costing them on the back end in terms of tokens? For every good output, what is that costing them in terms of tokens, right? So highly, highly customizable user interface here. So the way that the product again works is we take the inputs, the outputs, the metadata, the trace IDs, and then we run them against our Fiddler trust models. These are our own small language models. These are all our own small LLMs that we run the data against. These are hosted on the customer's premises, right? So these comes batteries included. It's not calling out to an external LLM as a judge. If you wanted to do that, you could do that as well. But these come built in with the product. You can deploy them on premise or in your own VPC, or we can provide this as a cloud service. So we run them against our small language models. We create context around that data, and then we provide reporting on, like I said, everything from faithfulness to toxicity, data drift, quality, jailbreak attempts, leakage of data, whatever that might be, we report on that. And then we have guardrails on top of this, right? So what is our IP? What is unique to us is these Fiddler trust models that we have. Again, they run securely. There's no hidden costs here. Now, if a customer wanted to bring their own LLM as a judge, they could do that. Obviously, there's certain costs associated with the token usage, whatever you're paying OpenAI or Anthropic, but most customers don't need to do that. It comes built in with our own small language models. This is what we call our secure guardrails. If you're seeing hallucinations in real time, within 100 milliseconds, it will detect that and then put that back into the loop to say, so for example, we usually show an example of a chatbot that a lot of customers create internally. And you can go on there and say, give me the address or the email address or the phone number of the CEO. The system detects that as someone trying to jailbreak and gives it back an output saying, sorry, this is not the type of data that I can provide right now. Or it can go back into then, because we also provide evals from a pre-production perspective, put that back into the loop, provide some learning there and put that back into the loop there. So again, comes built in, no additional cost here. And if, however, someone does want to bring their own external LLM as a judge, you can do that as well. We have customers across every industry you can think of. Our largest customers are on the financial services side, on the healthcare side, on the insurance side, on the tech side. So we have customers like Fidelity, which is a large investment company in the US, and they're using us for their help desk application for wealth management. And what's obviously important to them is ensuring that there's no hallucinations happening. The data that is being provided is faithful data. So for example, if I'm a user and I come in and ask about my NVIDIA stock, but the output is telling me, giving me Salesforce stock data, it's obviously, that could be, from a reputational standpoint, could be harmful for Fidelity. So those are the types of things that we detect for Fidelity. Along with, just overall, they also have an internal application for customer support that they use us for. And obviously they're detecting for making sure there's no bias in the data. They also have a lot of customizable metrics that they want to be able to monitor as well. Elevance Health is another one. Again, they're using us for a patient risk cost classification agent, as well as for a call center assistant agent. They're deploying this at scale. They're one of the few companies in the US that are really adopting AI at very large scale. And we're helping them there monitor, ensuring that that data is accurate, it's not hallucinating. If there's any hallucination of data that's happening, or there's any risk or any PHI of leakage that is found there, our system can block that for them with our guardrail system. AIG is another very large insurance company in the US. They're again a very large adopter of AI. They're still in their early stages of deploying both their internal agents as well as external agents. But they are at a point where they've locked everything down in terms of AI, where if there's a .ai domain coming into AIG, they block it. They use Zscaler to kind of block their IP there. And so that's the level of controls they had around AI usage. But what that does is anybody trying to build agentic applications or using third-party applications, they're not able to do that. So the only way they can safely do that is by using Fiddler. Other customers, like I said, Ally Bank, MasterCard, they're using us again at very large scale, for predictive up to 1 billion events per day for high-scale ML workloads. So we have customers like Airbnb that are using us at extremely large scale, over 1 billion events per day is what they're monitoring with us. And then, like I said, Fidelity uses us for their wealth management app. As far as what does that mean, control plane for AI agents? In the legacy world, you have your APM tools like Splunk and AppDynamics and Datadog, but those are used for your traditional data that's there. And then on the model performance side, we used to be a model. That's how we got started off, was on the model performance monitoring side, and that is still what we do as part of the company. But we are marrying those worlds together now by building this control plane for agents. And as we're going forward, we're seeing more and more of our customers also. These are not just simple RAG applications. These are more complex MCP applications where agents are calling upon other agents and so on and so forth. And to be able to monitor both of those worlds from a model performance perspective as well as from an APM perspective, that is what is needed, and that is what we provide. So in this new world, especially where there's multiple agents and agents are calling on other agents, being able to monitor and observe that entire chain and that entire tool chain, that's call chain that's happening, is extremely important for safety and observability there. So that is what we're providing as a control plane for AI agents, where you can single pane of glass to monitor everything. This is another way of showing you how the product works. We do everything from an evals perspective, where when your developers are creating those applications internally, we can provide the observability and security on top of that, as well as when they go into production, and then provide a complete feedback loop on that output and going back into those evaluators there. Again, we're doing that complete lifecycle management from the build perspective. We set the foundation for reliable, cost-effective agents. So as you're building these agents, being able to observe during the pre-production side, during the development side, is extremely important, ensuring that there's no hallucination and bias of data, and the outputs are what they're supposed to be. From a monitoring and in production side, again, it's going into complete trace level data of everything that your agent is doing. And then analyzing that down to the root cause level is part of the entire tool chain there. So again, we build, we test, we provide observability in the build phase, the test phase, the monitor phase, and in production. And then from a guardrails perspective, we provide the blocking that needs to happen afterwards. So if you look at how the world has changed in your, in the web world and in the cloud world, you're on the observability side, you had tools like New Relic and Datadog. In the compound AI world, Fiddler is the solution for observability for ML, LLM, and your agents, right? So essentially what New Relic and Datadog used to do for your traditional data, we do that for your machine learning and agentic data. That's all I have. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. That was super interesting. So it's looking really good. So yeah, Kurt Mumel from Dataiku, where I'm head of AI strategy. As we just heard, yes, Dataiku, very proud to have Zeo as investors. Just a brief history of the company. How did it start? 2013, these two funny looking guys, Clément and Florian, who some of you know, had a very good idea. And that was to create this company called Dataiku. How it's going today in 2026. Here we are with 700 plus enterprise customers, more than $350 million in annual recurring revenue. I think though what's most important to take away from this slide is the nature of the companies that we tend to work with. They are cross-sector, right? We work with every single industry. We are a very horizontal platform. And really organizations that are both large and complex. That's really our sweet spot. And of course, I'll get to what we actually do for them in just a moment. But just continuing with a brief introduction, in addition to Florian and Clément, our CEO and CTO and co-founders, we now have a C-suite, which is composed of executives coming from publicly traded companies previously. So directionally, you can interpret that the way that that you wish. But really confident now in this this team of leaders that is combining both that experience of being out in the public markets, along with the kind of core soul innovation and vision coming from our co-founders. So today, Dataiku's customers, what are they doing with Dataiku, right? Well, the truth is they're building a lot of agents, and this is probably a little small even at this size for some of you in the back. But what we see are agents across essentially every type of use case, of every type of application. They're growing revenue, they're reducing costs, they're managing risk, they're elevating customer experience, and all of this within the Dataiku platform. So Dataiku sees its customers rapidly developing and deploying agents into production. So if we want to say Dataiku helps organizations get agents into production, we can check that box. And specifically, this is not just off-the-shelf agents, but agents that they build themselves, which are specific to their own business context. And this is really key, because if you go and you get an off-the-shelf agent, it performs well, perhaps, but not necessarily any better than that same agent that your competitor is buying also off that very same shelf. And so these are custom-built, custom-designed agents that our customers are building for themselves in Dataiku and putting it into production. But when you look at these, right, these are, I would say, kind of focused on convenience, on task, on marginal acceleration, right? They're helpful, they're valuable, there's real ROI, but I don't think that this is yet the full promise of agentic AI in the enterprise. Really what we see as the future is agents where you can truly trust them in an enterprise setting, in that most complex enterprise setting, right? Where we're talking about the banks that we work with the the high-tech manufacturing companies that we work with. When you talk about the pharmaceutical companies that we work with, their reality requires something much more complex than a single agent, which is maybe automating a workflow, providing quicker lookup into a corpus of documents, all these things that we know that that agents can do today. Sure, you can do those in Dataiku, but really Dataiku's focus is on that next frontier of even more complex agents that you can trust in the way that they, not only with not only with the answers that they come to, but with the way in which they arrived at that answer. And I think that distinction is quite important, because as we know with our employees, right? If you have a new junior employee, and I think that analogy that we've heard is quite good, and they come with you with a correct seeming answer, the first thing you're going to want to know is, well, how did you get there? Because you don't want to just check the result. You want to verify their work. You want to verify their reasoning. And so the next challenge, right, is these most high stakes decision processes in the different industries, right? And of course, these are different by industry. In financial services, of course, it might be a new customer onboarding, where you need to decide, is this somebody that we want to bring on as a customer? What is the associated risk? What is the potential benefit? And those of you in the industry, of course, know the number of inputs and the number of steps to get there. And the same is true across every different industry. You can imagine all of these more and more complex processes that require so many different sources of information, so many different calculations, and so many different steps in reasoning to a final outcome. We broke down some of these processes with some of our customers. This is a real example, but it's actually kind of cleaned up and simplified, because the original was some sort of massive Lucid chart that was about six screens wide. But what this is meant to illustrate, right, is that within this, there's not just one type of intelligence. There's multiple agents in this diagram. There are predictive models running within this diagram. There are statistics, data sets, which have been processed and built up. And then finally, and importantly, human in the loop throughout. And this is one process, right? An important business process. This one happens to be coming from a bank. But the reality is, in order to build that, right, this is a highly complex, highly nuanced system of reasoning for this organization. And so when you look at the reality today that that organizations face, they have complex processes like those that we just saw. Getting anything done in a big, serious company on the things that matter, it's complex. The next step, though, is, of course, we have all of these new agents coming out, and it's absolutely true. There's an explosion of agents. I like the strategy of just blocking the .ai domain. That's it's dirty, but at least it's effective, right? It's honest. We're just going to stop it. But then on top of this, the data that the enterprises are running on remains, well, I want to say hopelessly fragmented. But the reality is that actually, in many cases, it makes sense for a large enterprise to not be on a single data platform, to not be in a single data lake, to continue to run some of that legacy, maybe even on-premises technology, databases or Hadoop clusters. It's true. They're still running them because that's actually quite economical. That's actually, in many cases, more secure. And of course, as sovereignty concerns increase, becomes a far more rational approach to mitigating risk. And so looking at this enterprise reality, well, we hear a lot of proposed solutions, but we tend to qualify those as magical thinking. We hear that there's going to be models that are just so smart that they're going to sort out these complex processes that humans have a hard time understanding. Maybe, but at that point, we're probably in an artificial superintelligence realm, and maybe none of these presentations or any of our jobs matter anymore, but it's probably true. At the same time, right, there's just going to be better protocols between MCP, A2A, and better agent technologies, and they're just going to sort this out themselves, and they're going to connect to one another, discuss what they do, come up with a way that they should work together, and get on with it. And since you all know how well all of your employees do that on their own, you can definitely trust your agents to do that on their own as well, right? Exactly, right? You just need a molt book, an internal molt book, right? Maybe SharePoint for agents. That's just what we need, and then they'll figure it all out. And then finally, right? Because of all of this, because these agents are going to be so smart, and because you're going to have such a great semantic layer on top of all of your data, they're going to be able to go and find exactly what they need at any one time, right? And so you're going to have this magically unified data without doing any of the hard work of figuring it out. Well, okay, let's come back to real life. Let's come back to how decisions are actually made in large organizations that have a lot at stake for any one of these processes. Well, we think that this is going to require pretty significant process engineering, re-engineering. And what I mean by that is re-engineering these processes for this new agentic reality. Question is, who's going to be doing that? Is it is it some small class of data scientists who are now graduated into AI engineers or agent engineers who are doing that? Or is it the much broader class of really smart people who know their business, but don't necessarily have familiarity in all the agentic frameworks and all the nuance of building these agents? Perhaps there's an opportunity to use AI to assist in this process. Come back to that. There needs to be the ability to really define deterministic trade-offs. The way in which a process is run is going to require making hard decisions that, in this case, we can accept more risk for more reward, or alternatively, we cannot. And then finally, we need very clear data curation to make sure that the right data is getting to these processes, to these agents, to these systems that are reasoning about the problem, so that they're making not only a well-informed decision, but a decision that is truly informed by the right data for that particular question. And so, right, what we see is that these foundational capabilities, that re-engineering, that data curation, and of course, those deterministic trade-offs, that applies to a missing layer. And to describe that, I want to start with an analogy, right? So historically, organizations, we run our day-to-day kind of table stakes processes in these systems of record. I'm glad that we all have this new vocabulary, which is, I think, really helps us to think about these processes. But basically, for your systems of record, you're not seeking to differentiate yourself, right? You're running your business. It's a core backend process. And this is where each one kind of comes embedded with its own compute, data, and business logic. And that's fine. But always, well, at least for the last 25 years, longer going back, organizations have also built their own solutions when those systems of record don't meet their needs. And this is where a lot of great engineering has happened. And then over those last 20, 25 years, we've adopted and really come to appreciate the value of abstraction layers. And that, of course, starts with the compute layer, especially with the advent of the cloud and web services. We're able to build applications more quickly using more standardized services. Then, of course, we had the abstraction of the data layer with the advent of data warehouses, data lakes, and the modern data platforms that we have today. This allows organizations to build those custom applications much more quickly. But what's really needed then for this new class of applications, these agentic applications, or better to describe them as these complex systems of reasoning that involve multiple agents, multiple different types of intelligence throughout. Here we think that there really is a missing layer. And I keep using the word, so we like to call it the reasoning layer within the organization. But very concretely, it is that system of intelligence and then reaching into a system of action that we've been describing previously, where you're actually defining the way in which an organization needs to solve a problem. So taking into account which data, which transformations on that data, which predictive models, which logic built into that agent, that would be defined in that reasoning layer. And right, the reasoning layer probably has connections to the data, decision tactics, where you're actually defining those calculations to come to a result, but then also that ability to define the decision strategy. So where you're defining those trade-offs, where you're assigning accountability, and where you're defining those business objectives. So Dataiku, where do we fit in this stack? We see ourselves indeed as this agnostic orchestration layer, sitting on top of all the clouds, data platforms, legacy systems, LLM providers, and enterprise apps, reaching down into them to complete those actions, and in which those primarily domain experts, so if you look at the user base of Dataiku, it's a mix of data scientists, but then primarily in terms of number, experts in supply chain, finance, manufacturing, sales, who are actually building, deploying, and governing these agents, models, and analytics out on top of those systems. And so what we're seeing is that there is this definition of the way in which the business is run, and that these domain experts are able to do so. And I regret that we're having this meeting today and not 4 weeks from now, because in about 3 weeks we're announcing some really significant product updates as well that I think are really going to accelerate that type of transformation, using AI to accelerate the ability of those domain experts to build on top of those systems. So stay tuned, mid-March. Just to give an example of this, we have SoftBank as one of our customers, and one of the things that they delivered was the ability to build an internal system for their salespeople. Obviously, sales acceleration is a main focus of all sorts of startups, all sorts of incumbents in the market. SoftBank, they know who they are, they have access to them, they can buy their software if they want, but they preferred to build it themselves within Dataiku to really be able to precisely tune it to their needs. And this across both the people, right, serving those 1,000 salespeople, orchestrated in the way that they needed, matching the needs of their business, and all within the framework of governance that Dataiku provides. So all sorts of exciting KPIs, like 90% of sellers achieving higher sale quality and efficiency when selling, and so on. I know everybody has slides with numbers on them. They're all big, so I won't belabor the point, but suffice it to say that they're quite satisfied with that ability. But ultimately, 250,000 hours saved annually across their sales teams. That's a lot more selling happening, given the agents that they built in Dataiku to automate a lot of those processes for themselves. So our optimistic vision, well, we really believe that AI can do a lot, and we'll be able to do a lot more coming soon. And especially with some of these most recent models from OpenAI and Anthropic, that's really, I think, made this sentence even more true than when I wrote it 2 weeks ago. Because really there is this incredible opportunity to re-engineer these decision processes, these core decisions of the business, not the small ones off to the side, but really the core ones that run the business in a way that differentiates these players from their competitors. 2, we believe that the advent of this reasoning layer, as a system of intelligence, is inevitable because it's going to allow you to go faster through that abstraction. And of course, Dataiku, we're building this now with our current and future customers. So if you want to know anything more, please, we can chat during the break or afterwards at the networking cocktail. And like I said, stay tuned for about 3 weeks from now. We have some exciting announcements for everyone. Thanks.
Nice to meet you all. So I'm Nico. I'm managing a team of solution engineers at Neo4j. It's been 6 years and a half. And I'm working in EMEA South, so France, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Today, I'm going to talk about the new AI reality and the high failure rates. And we're going to speak about the root causes of AI failure, Then we're gonna bring a solution, the knowledge layer, with 5 roles of this knowledge layer for agentic AI, and then proof points and conclusion. But one question for you. When a baby starts, for example, interacting with things and the people, if he or she has no memory or context, then he or she will not remember what happened and what was the failure. So there might be an allegory in my talk with agents, okay? If they have no memory and no context, I think they won't be able to come to industrialization. So about the context, AI is disrupting. Lots of market analyzers say, like Gartner, they say organizations with rich connected knowledge graphs will have a significant competitive advantage. And IDC says AI pipelines need dynamic schemas to handle evolving sources. So everything about here is about enriching data with more context and connections. And in fact, a lot of people here told about that, but the context is changing for applications because they were deterministic based on crude models, create, read, update, delete in relational databases. And then they become dynamic, context-aware, and autonomous. But 3 questions. Who's really in charge when agents make decisions? How are those decisions made and with what knowledge? And what happens when there is a swarm of agents interacting together? So let's try to, to see what could happen. So if we free the agent, then it might rule the world, but not the good way. Then the context of the agent might be a bit limited. It really depends on your point of view, where you are, how you see the elephant. And the chaos might happen because it's like the control tower. If every plane is following its own plan, then there is chaos. Okay. So, and this is why lots of AI pilots fail. And there are explanations for that. Hallucinations. Every LLM, even SLM, make mistakes. It's a powerful statistical intelligence, but it's failure prone. Most of the time it's a black box, so you cannot explain. There is an issue with discernment because it's a null or nothing game. LLM need to know everything or nothing. And so you have to put some rights, security, role-based access control on all of it. And then AI lacks context. And every model, even the best trained models, they don't have access to relevant enterprise context. Okay, so let's dig deeper. The foundation models, they lack your domain knowledge. They were not trained most of the time with your company data. The small models, they lack the latest data and they are opaque. They lack discernment. The data, which used to be structured as static rows and columns, it's organized for prepared questions, not new questions. The unstructured data is difficult to mine. And then our IT has made a lot of things except organizing, and they created silos everywhere. A bit sad. But then there is the knowledge layer. So it's the layer that turns raw, siloed data, multiple data, structured, unstructured, and mixed, into connected and contextual knowledge. So the characteristics is that apps, agents, and tools can base their knowledge on the graph, which holds the structure, the context, and the meaning. But it also stores the memory of agent interaction. So an agent speaking to another agent is like a node connected to another node in the graph. And it bridges human and machine understanding, because when you think about it, having a semantic representation of the world, for example, a client buying a product, well, it's a potato client, a potato product, and an arrow between them, okay? So it's machine understandable, but also human understandable. And the bridge is here. And so the graph links and unifies the data sources and objects. It connects with every data platform and external databases. It's connected to any LLM platform and powers GenAI applications using retrievers, tools, and agents. The requirements we want to meet for agentic enterprise knowledge is first real-time updates. So having access to up-to-date data and with low latency. We want an efficient storage for any type of data. We want to connect the enterprise data that is scattered everywhere. And we want to store any retrieval augmented generation interaction in an agentic memory, because if we don't have memory, we don't improve. And all of that, on top of that, we want governance, explainability for trust, transparency, and compliance. All right, so there are the 5 roles of the AI knowledge layer. So to provide context for agents for better answers, to connect the silos, to get transparency. So it's a symbolic AI with graph. It's not a semantic intelligence. We want data protection, and we want, on top of that, to handle very complex questions. So how do we answer? How do we fill that 5 roles? So first of all, we want to provide context for agents. If I have a customer whose name is Sarah, I want to access her recent online interactions, but also the household members' interactions, the shopping carts of everybody, and then it's a few hops in a graph. And I want to provide that context to these agents in order to power a better answer and sell more. Yeah. And then I want to connect the silos. Just a quick example from the industry. When I want to get rid of Chromium 6, which is very bad for environment, but it's used in coating in aircraft industry. Every part of the company is concerned. HR, network security, suppliers, products, process, and so on. If we don't have a holistic approach of that issue, we don't transform the company to get rid of Chromium 6. There will be gaps in the organization. So we really have to connect the silos. Then about knowledge transparency. Well, on the right, you have the LLM vision of an apple. Very understandable, floats. And on the left, you have the graph vision of an apple. So it's symbolic and it's much more readable. It's a kind of taxonomy of the apple. Yeah, it's a fruit. It can be red, it can be pink, the pink ladies, and so on. About data protection and discernment, let's say that classically speaking, in relational databases, you have read and write permissions on data. For graph, you have read, write, and traverse. Extremely powerful because you have the possibility to traverse without seeing. So it's very good for auditability. For example, a customer service has someone on the phone and they have to check if it's patient Bob, and that patient Bob is connected to the doctor he wants to speak to. So there is a path between the customer service and the doctor. And in that path, there is a health diagnosis that was made for patient Bob. The customer service doesn't have the right to read this PI data, which is the health diagnosis. But they have the right to know that this patient Bob is connected to that doctor. So it's traversing without seeing. So it's super powerful in role-based access control and auditability. And finally, handling of complex questions. So a question would be, what is the number of unique devices used by the top 5 most active users with the highest logging records in the country with the highest number of IP usages? Well, to understand that question, first, it took me some time, but then we give the LLM a connected context, and then they will solve these complex questions. And it's really powerful as well. So to wrap it up, the knowledge layer solves hallucination, explainability, discernment, and lack of context. Two quick return of experience. So there is Klarna, who introduced their internal chatbot, Kiki. At the beginning, they wanted to give a chatbot to their customers. And then they realized that the most urgent need was to power their internal employees with a chatbot on every Klarna knowledge. And they replaced, by doing that, putting a graph knowledge layer and some LLMs to power their Kiki chatbot. Then they got rid of 1,200 SaaS applications. 85% of the company adopted Kiki, and it already answered hundreds of thousands of questions. Another example is NatWest, who wanted to meet the DORA regulations. Then they built an agentic data lineage with a Neo4j graph database on AWS. And this way, they can discover all the lineage, all the sources, answer such questions as, where does mortgage address originate exactly in my information system? So their lead data engineer said, hey, it's 10x efficiency gain in onboarding, control testing, and regulatory delivery. So who we are at last in this presentation. So we are Neo4j, so the graph database and graph AI category leader and pioneer. We are backed by Eurazeo as well, so we could say we are Dataiku cousin. To speak about me, I helped build with Dataiku engineers the Neo4j Dataiku connector. So we regularly work together at some customers. So we were born in Sweden, in Malmö exactly, and all our R&D is made in Sweden and UK, and we are a trusted partner of lots of companies and government, 84% of the Fortune 100. And I will finish by inviting you at our events. I don't know where you are based, but there might be a Graph Summit near you. The next one in Paris is April 14. You are invited, and you can connect with me if you want to know more about graphs. Thank you.